I've learned this quite quickly in business. Showing your vulnerability is probably one of the biggest assets you can have as a leader, because what you end up doing is, it's like a family, right? So if you're down, what happens is everyone comes around you. And you know, your shoulders are only so broad as an individual. You can only do so much on your own. You've got a whole community, a whole tribe around you. And if you try to be this strong person that never asks for help, guess what happens? You don't get any help.
Yeah. Hi everybody, and welcome to FEBE Founder Stories, and it is brilliant to be joined by Nena Chaletzos. How are you?
I'm great, and how are you?
I'm good, I'm very good, thank you. I mean, I'm always excited to be talking to founders, but I have to kick off by saying we are so proud that you were in our FEBE Growth 100. So congratulations on the fact you've clearly built a brilliant business.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it is accolade to the team.
Which we were saying earlier, you've got a great team.
Absolutely. I think there's so much I want to, we can talk about with the team, but yeah, we're very, very proud to be on the list. And really proud to be here and share our story with everyone.
Well, right. Well, let's start to unpick your story then. I think for me, it is very topical at the moment, travel, obviously with what's happening, because it's always on the news with cancelled flights and what have you. Now, we know that being an entrepreneur has always, or a business owner, an entrepreneur, has always got so many curveballs and so many challenges. I guess right now, you're in a bit of one of those situations right now. How is it impacting you with everything that's happening?
Well, for 2 years, there's not been really much travel, hardly any travel at all. And, since January, the pendulum swung the other way and travel has opened up, and you've had this huge amount of pent up demand where people's, right to travel was removed, and all of a sudden they can travel. So you can only just imagine the frenzy, I guess, of people wanting to go out and explore the world after being stuck at home for so long has been significant, and never really anything that the travel industry has ever experienced. And when we were looking at the numbers and looking at different industries and how they have grown coming out the pandemic, the travel industry was one of the fastest growing coming out of it. I mean, of course, that makes sense because it was the one that was closed for so long. So naturally, the growth is going to be very rapid, and it's going to show. So it's been phenomenal. It's been huge, and it's been a lot of pressure as well, as you can imagine.
I bet.
Yeah. So not only have you got people who now are beginning to travel or have been traveling, so you had 2 years of no travel, and all you were doing was working with customers, inspiring them, moving them forward to a new date or booking new people. But now you're dealing with all of these backed up 2 years of people trying to travel and new people coming into your customer kind of portfolio wanting to book. And you can imagine that the summer months, there's so many people who are traveling, and there's people who want to travel. And it's really difficult because the supply and demand is not matching up. So airlines are under pressure, hotels have got bookings that have been booked, they're booked all the way through to September, where it starts kind of easing off a little bit. And then you've got people desperate to travel and wanting to book. So, and then you've got the chaos in, what we're seeing with the airlines, with the airports. Luckily, it hasn't impacted long haul, which is what we do.
Which is where you focus.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's...
Hence Luxtripper, luxury.
Absolutely, Luxtripper, luxury. But you can get luxury in Europe. Our main focus is more mid and long haul.
Okay.
So we haven't been impacted, and our customers haven't been hugely impacted, though there have been things like schedule changes and things like that. But it's been a nice chaos to be in. It's a better place to be in than when you couldn't travel. So I'd rather have this chaos than the kind of uncertainty of not knowing when travel was going to open up. So there's pressure around. The travel industry is under a lot of pressure, but they're doing a great job. One thing I would say about the industry I'm in, it's a very resilient industry.
I bet, yeah, it has to be.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always something going on, whether it's ash clouds or, you've come out of the pandemic. But the industry, and I'm really proud to be part of a very resilient bunch of, companies and people that I've spoken to.
And it's one of the industries that always get the first time the camera's rolling out, won't it, when it all kicks off? Because it's always, obviously, when it does go wrong, it's very chaotic. So it's great news. It's great news, right?
Yeah. It's newspapers or news, they just want to sell, right? So they're going to look at what people are going to be interested in. The airports was a good news story. That will get boring. There will always be something else. But the travel industry did get kind of, I suppose, a lot of the big news around it.
Yeah.
And hey, it's still standing as an industry. And if anything, it's booming. It's gone insane. Numbers have just
rocketed.
Rocketed. Like anything.
Still, I guess, related to the curveballs and the huge pressures from the sector that you're in, you were the only travel business, that made it into the FEBE Growth 100 against the backdrop of one of the most unprecedented events that has happened ever. How on earth did you manage to create such incredible growth through what's been one of the hardest periods for any business, let alone in your sector?
I think there's a number of reasons why we managed to. I mean, we went into the pandemic not having a clue how long it was going to last, thinking that, okay, this is only going to be 2 months, maybe a month, 2 months, 3 months tops. And I think everyone was in the same boat. When the work from home order came in, we'd already moved everyone home because we could see the writing on the wall. There's this noise going on here, and it seems like, that it's going to continually spread, and it's very likely that it's going to come to a point when we can't really leave the house. So in February, I'd said to the team, we already had some people working from home anyway, but I said to the team, look, grab your equipment, go home, set yourself up. And it was amazing because the team was so resilient at that point because we were ahead. We weren't being told what to do. And I always know, my background is HR, so I've worked in HR. Yeah, so previously to starting the business, I'm not from the travel industry, which is another whole kind of story altogether.
Well, we'll get there then. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, so I knew that we won't have clarity. I knew that it was going to be very difficult for the governments to give us clarity about what's going to happen, because how can you tell what's going to happen with a disease that it's new.
Yeah.
So I thought my role in this chaos that is going to come is to create some sort of clarity. So I said, right, guys, you're going to work from home. I thought that's the first thing I need to give clarity. And they were really great. They set themselves up. And what we did was very quickly, we got ahead of the curve. We got everyone there. But as travel started shutting down and everything else, we were like, oh my God, how are we going to survive? We sell travel and no one can travel. Okay.
Well, the way you've said that is, I guess, a lot calmer than actually the reality of what you were saying.
I can say, now sitting here.
But I bet it was terrifying, right?
Oh, it was, for me, the biggest terror when I told everyone to go home, I have always been really strong in front of the team, but I lost it.
Did you?
Because I looked at all their faces and I can see they were so fearful. And the most important thing for me was how are we going to survive? And I thought, how are they all going to survive? They need to pay their bills. They need to eat. They need to, have a roof over their head. And I had a small team in India as well that we'd set up. So not only over here, over there too. And they were on a video call when I was telling everyone. And for that moment, not only was I fearful for the business I'd worked blood, sweat and tears to build, I was fearful about how was I going to pay them if we don't have customers buying holidays, right? And I think that for me was when I was speaking and I just lost it and I just turned my back. And I went, 1 minute, guys, had a quick little sob, turned back round and said, right, that's done, out the way. We all needed a bit of a cry and I was terrified.
Do you know something? This is fascinating because we talk about, with leaders, being able to show vulnerability. And I don't know, maybe we've been a bit on a shift in terms of leaders showing more vulnerability. But how did that go down with the team, seeing, as you said, someone who always tries to be, I think the word you used was strong. How did they react to seeing you feeling like that?
I think, and I've learned this quite quickly in business, showing your vulnerability is probably one of the biggest assets you can have as a leader. Because what you end up doing is, it's like a family, right? So if you're down, what happens is everyone comes around you. And, your shoulders are only so broad as an individual. You can only do so much on your own. You've got a whole community, a whole tribe around you. And if you try to be this strong person that never asks for help, guess what happens? You don't get any help.
Yeah.
Right? So the minute you are vulnerable, when you've got your village, guess what happens? They all come around. They're like, right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And I think that was a little miracle moment for me, was when I lost it. And all of a sudden, everyone was like, no, we've got it, Nina, don't worry, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that.
Wow.
I'm going to go and set this up. Let me go home first, set the phones up, then everyone can like one by one go home. And they took care of it. And we then continued showing our vulnerability throughout, because we were all really scared, right? We were scared for family members. We didn't know if it was going to happen. You know,
Yeah.
We just thought, how are we going to keep earning to pay the bills?
Because sorry, that's interesting in itself. You had a pandemic, which was only a threat to your own personal well-being, but also the huge threat to your whole livelihood.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a complete.
It was
headbang,
a complete. And on top of
Here's
that,
another word then.
and on top of that, my mum and dad were abroad in India, and they got stuck. So not only all of this was going on, I had my parents stuck
Wow.
abroad, and they couldn't get on a flight. And eventually, we managed to get them onto a flight to come back. So I had so much stuff going on, and my mum had a heart attack in October that year as well.
Oh,
so I had everything going on. But in terms of how we got through, was really. We just knuckled down. The team, being honest and vulnerable, every day we had a half an hour to 1 hour call together. And, it was a 10 a.m. call, and we just talked about anything. Sometimes it was just a rant. Some of it was we would just do like music. Some of it was we talked about something in the business. We did yoga classes on there. We thought we've got to carry
Online,
this
on Zoom.
On Zoom.
Cool.
Every day we realised that we need to do this. Sometimes people shared about their own personal life, and it was amazing, because what we created was even a better culture than we ever had, because we never had this 1 hour when we were working in the office. Now all of a sudden we had this wellness hour that everyone was coming to, and it was the highlight of the morning, because you were stuck at home and you're like, 10 a.m. I'm going to grab my cup of tea or coffee, and I'm going to join, and everyone's going to be on there. And it was amazing. So I shared my fears. I said, does anyone know how to do this, or etc. But we really focused on culture very quickly. We knew that we had to give everyone a safe place to come to feel part of something, because we were all locked up and bored and stressed and worried, that if we together still felt that we were there as a network to help each other, then it will help relieve the anxiety, so that we can then focus on what we need to do to ensure the business survives.
Yeah.
So, we'd been growing year on year, 100% year on year growth before the pandemic, right? So
100%.
100% year on year. And then all of a sudden the pandemic hit. So what we decided was, very quickly, we're going to look at our financials, right? So we had a really clear model and process every day to look at what's going on with our bank account, what's going on with our bookings, what's going on with our customers. We also then looked at our customers, because we wanted to know what's going on, what's the sentiment with people out there. Do they want to hear about travel when you're not even able to travel? So our digital marketing teams did a phenomenal job connecting. We're a digital tech travel company. So the benefit of that is we launched social first as a company. We were the first travel company to launch on social media. And because of that, and we had such a powerful social media brand, we were able to connect with our customers and our audiences in seconds.
You've got a great following, haven't you?
Absolutely, great. I mean, really big following. And we asked them questions. We presented information. We presented pictures, videos, and we could see very quickly what people found interesting, what was inspiring people. We asked them questions, polls, and we realised quickly that people were stuck at home and they needed something to look forward to. So not only we were giving them inspiring content, we started getting bookings.
Really?
Quite quickly.
Because people could see that there would be an end, and because they
People
therefore wanted to
believed.
start to get excited about.
No one knew it was going to go on for 2 years, right? And every month we're like, when it came to the end, we're like, oh, it's going to go on for another year. We don't believe it anymore. But, we started, and the great thing is we're very agile as a business. We've come out of growth. We come out of startup mode, and we were in growth just before the pandemic hit. So we already had dealt with adversity. You know, a startup growth company, you have problems every day, all day long, right? And you've got to deal with them. So the pandemic was just another problem, but on a much bigger scale.
Yeah.
So we already had the way of working to try to deal with problems, very problem-solving, outcome-focused team. And our travel product team is so quick at creating product. The marketing team would understand what the customer wanted. The travel product team would quickly create that product, and the same day would get the product out, and then our sales team would start booking. So it was a exciting journey, a very interesting, but I think the vulnerability was key for me, that if I wasn't vulnerable, I don't know, you know, would I have got the same results? I'm not sure, because by being open and opening up, I can do this, I can't do this, I need help. What happens is it gives your team members and your colleagues an opportunity to step up, and people, guess what? They want to step up.
Yeah.
They want that opportunity. They want that platform. And, you know, we also encouraged failure, because if you didn't, then you don't encourage people to take that step forward and take a risk. And, you know, so we were like, don't worry, we know you're going to fail first time. That's all right, we'll cheer, because once you've failed, you've learned a really good lesson that you never, you know, we're going to learn from it and grow. And it was a miraculous sort of
it sounds
process
incredible
by the team.
Just to close that bit off on vulnerability, you strike me straight away a very strong person, confident person. Yeah. How do you maintain vulnerability, making sure that it then doesn't? And I'm guessing this is what the worries of some people, that can therefore give a perception of there's an element of weakness.
Yeah.
So how do you get the blend? And because I'm fascinated in what you're saying here. Because vulnerability is needed, but how do you therefore make sure it doesn't expose a side that people might pounce on?
Absolutely. And, you know, coming from corporate blue chip organisations, if I was vulnerable, it would be shown as weakness, and I wouldn't get an opportunity, I'd never get promotion, you know, blah, blah, blah. Being a woman also, knowing that, you know, coming into travel industry is quite, you know, people, CEOs, there's not as many, there's more women coming up at senior levels, and it'd be great if that continues. So it's not an easy thing to do, but I think for me, where I got my aha moment was when we got our chairman on board, Roger Flynn, who's got a really great background, and he joined us in 2018. And
this is a big hitter, right, isn't it, Roger?
Yeah, he's a big hitter.
I've got your profile in my head from the growth managers.
Absolutely, he's you know, he's worked in BA, Virgin. You know, he was chairman of Love Holidays, which, you know, I think they were like on the fast track. You know, like 100. I think one of the top 1 or 2 positions. So they exited, and when they exited, he came and joined us. And when I met Roger, I felt that he, you know, you can always be very nervous as someone with such a, you know, esteemed background, and he was so down to earth, and he was actually so supportive. And I thought, oh, hold on a minute. And I kind of tested, you've got to test a little bit, you know, showed a bit of areas that we weren't doing so great on. And he was really encouraging, saying, well, actually, you're doing really great. You know, you're putting yourself down a bit, you know, you're doing really great here. And it allowed me to feel comfortable myself first. And the minute I realised it's okay, and the more I'm opening up about where we need to improve, and the more support I'm getting, then I need to do this with everyone else, and I need to open up my vulnerabilities to encourage others, to show that if I'm being vulnerable and you guys are helping me, you can do the same. And it does take time. People do get nervous, you know. They do feel like, oh, am I not? But very quickly, within the first 2 weeks of anyone joining, they always say, I love the culture and I can be who I am. And we've also moved a lot of people around once they join. We do this thing called Strength Finders, understanding what your pure raw strength and talent is.
Yes.
And
so many people follow on, like if I think back to school, you're drilled into you to concentrate on your weaknesses, when actually this is an interesting way of thinking, which is you only focus on your strengths, right?
I went, you know, there's Gallup, which is, you know, this major it's one of the biggest organisations about people, and I went on a course with them, and I learned about Strength Finders. And for me and the team, you know, we have a head of people who always looks at strengths. We're constantly looking at people and thinking, right, you're not kind of doing as well, but that doesn't mean you're not great. What are you great in? And we find out their strengths and say, right, you know, we've identified you'll be great at this. Would you like to move to that job? and try it out. And what happens when you move them, they're brilliant. And it's amazing. So we've got kind of so many people doing this in the company that they come in one route, but they're actually doing something else, and they're loving it. And they thought, I never thought I could go into that role or that department. And
Wow.
so this is the whole vulnerability thing, is that we encourage it because it allows you to grow so
Yes.
much. But absolutely, it's not easy to
No.
kind of. Once you you know, when your ethos is, that's our ethos. That's who we are. We've built a business on being able to be, you know, breed positivity is one of our values, right? So what that means is that it's okay to be down, but we'll support you. It's okay to be vulnerable. We'll encourage, you know, you to be
Yeah.
open more. It's okay to fail because you're going to learn from it, you know,
Yeah.
and that's, we always see the glass half full version of it. And that's our culture, and we built the business on that ethos.
And clearly very successfully. It's working well. Now let's go back to the growth, because it sounds hair-raisingly fast. Treble digit year on year. Where could this business go then over the next? Where is, you talk about the vision of where the business is going to go. What do you see this could become?
We are just going to continue growing. That's one thing. We haven't stopped, so why stop now? And the team just, God, can you imagine every month you hit a number and you're like, right, you've got to grow again, right? So there's no like, okay, let's have a break. But we're used to that. That's how we are, and we don't settle for small growth. You know, like 10%, 15%. That's just not good. You know, that's because we're not used to that.
So it's going to be in hopefully the same trajectory.
Hopefully, but we have plans to execute to that. I think that's, you know, for us, it's always be learning, growing. I mean, one of the big areas for us is technology. So, you know, the technology that we've built and continue to improve is all our MIP. We don't use any other systems, any third-party, suppliers. We looked out in the industry. We couldn't find anything that solved the problem that we are solving, which is, you know, we sell itineraries and complex bespoke trips to customers.
Yeah.
And it's very much around what you want is very different to what I might want. Your background and who you're going to travel with might be different to I might be going with my partner. You might be going with your family. You might want to spend a different amount to me, and your experiences are very different. And you know, one of the problems I found when I started the business was that it started because me and my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, we were looking for a holiday, and I thought I found the perfect trip, and you know, all the different experiences and the different flights. So I went to him and said, all right, got it, here you are. And he was like, no, don't like that, or that's too much, and I want this, that and the other. And I'd spent like ages, you know, the research shows on average a person could spend a minimum of a week just trying to find the hotel they want, and 12 weeks to find out all the experiences they're looking for, right?
Wow.
And when you
That
when
is
you
extensive.
when you look at the Google search, you know, when I was doing the research, when I started the business, one of the biggest search queries out there, or search type, is travel. And it's no surprise, you know, the world is so big. It's the biggest thing is the world, right? Literally, it's nothing bigger than the world. And trying to find that needle in a haystack, perfect route, trip, everything else, it's cumbersome, difficult, and not just for customers, but also for the travel industry, trying to present a beautiful itinerary that matches exactly what the customer wants in minutes, right? So when we were looking at, there was nothing out there. So I was like, right, this for me, when I more and more spoke to people, when I came up with the idea, there was the light bulb moment, and I was like, hold on, and I started speaking to potential customers, and the same feedback was coming out that, yeah, I enjoy the whole process, but it's painful.
Yeah.
If there's an easier way, and I thought, right, that's it. I love travel. You know, the luxury travel industry is very resilient to recessions as well, and the market size is huge. You know, so, you know, UK at the time when I was looking, you know, back when I started the business, was the 5th largest outbound market in the world. You know, you've got US, Germany, etc. And we were in that list. And it was just growing at a rapid pace. And you know what? After the pandemic, it's growing even quicker. It's part of our DNA travel. You know, if you think about how we evolved as a species, we all were apparently in one continent, and we all evolved and moved. We travel. It's part of our DNA. But yet there was no simple way of building a complex itinerary. So that's why, from day one, I got investment from my mum, my husband, and a little bit of my savings, put it into this concept, went off and hired some developers, never even worked in tech before, I've never even worked in travel before, and we created this first where to go when concept where you don't need to know where you want to go, but you just put some basic filters in and it will give you results. And from that, we got some really good traction earlier on. Customers were loving it. We got shortlisted in the travel industry as one of the best newcomers. Travel industry, to try to break into that, you've got huge incumbents in there that have been there, and we're like just trying to have a go at it. And we were getting the recognition. That gave me the moment to say, you know what, we're going to do this. And now for us is continually improving. So the speed we get these complex itineraries out to our customers, it's same day, same hour. Whereas some of, it can take up to a week for
really?
Yeah, well, if you think about it, if let's just say you wanted to do a safari, you wanted to do a city, and then you wanted to go onto a beach, we can help so many people have such amazing experiences. And the other really core to our heart is the love for the world. I'm a vegan and I'm a self-professed tree hugger, a bit of a hippie at heart.
We like tree huggers at FEBE. That's cool.
And I've always from a very young age been very conscious about nature, and the environment and the love of animals. So when I started,
Wonderful.
One of the things I said is we're never, ever, ever going to profit from selling a trip that treats any animal or nature, anything badly. So, things like we're very careful that if there's any animal involved in the trip, it's done in a way that it's natural. So you're observing an animal from a distance, you're not interacting with them, you're not harming them. Even like when people go on some of these tours, you keep feeding animals food, but how do you know that's the right type of diet for the animal to eat that all day long? So we're very careful of that.
So you wouldn't do, for example, a trip to, let's say, a large aquarium?
without
naming the name.
No, it's not. So we have a team, our product team have, a standard that they will, just because it's a great hotel attached to something, that we won't sell it. And what we do is, it's not that we just don't sell it. We speak to the hotel or the tour provider, whatever, and we try to educate them as to why. And our customers love it. We don't just say, right, we've had some hotels actually change their stance on some of the things they were doing because they didn't realise that it meant a lot to us. And actually our customers were beginning to not want that happening to an animal or something in that particular, So it's actually had a good impact on some of our partners we're working with as well. And the other thing that we're really conscious of being a travel company and the CO2, carbon emissions is how do we become, more sort of thinking about the CO2 and the emissions. So we've started to offset our trips with planting trees for every trip. So we plant, I think, 15 trees for every trip.
Wow.
And the aim is we would like to one day become carbon positive rather than, so we'd like to be saying for every trip, we would like to get to a point where we're actually planting or doing more than we're, putting into the environment. And that for me is the biggest mission. When I'm a 80-year-old woman lying on my deathbed, it's not going to be about my bank account or anything like that. It's going to be about who were the people in my life and what did I do? And that's quite a big, deep meaning for me from day one. And the team are all like that as well. And we are really passionate. So not, I know we've got the amazing tech and everything else, but the heartbeat underneath that is about the world.
And that's what drives you, is it? That's what drives you to do what you do.
Oh my God, when we first had the first booking with the trees, I cried. It literally meant so much to me because I thought, I'm actually going to we are going to have an impact, hopefully, on the world. One other thing I cried, it's not to do with trees, but during the pandemic, we had this Africa booking, which was a very big order value. So it was in advance. We'd already paid for it in advance. And we said to the lodge, look, we're going to have to cancel it. Can you give the money back? We have to give it back to the customer because, that customer wanted to to think about what they wanted to do. And they came back and said, we really would, please could we hold this money and then you could book in the future? And we're like, no, we need to give it back. You know, the customer's asking for it. They said, the whole village will rely on this money for 9 months to survive. And I was like, again, another moment of crying. You know, I was so emotional. I was like, of course, we'll pay the customer and we'll hold that on account. We'll rebook it. I remember calling up my mum straight away and said, Mum, we are feeding the whole village for nine months. It meant so much that you can do that as a business. Yeah. It was quite profound. You have to have an element of being a bit mad as an entrepreneur. That sounds, I don't know if mad is the right word, a bit crazy.
Well, I think you've got it spot on there.
You have to. And I think, you know, whenever people used to say you're off with the fairies, that's not going to happen. And I was like, the minute people say that's not possible, that's my energy. I get so excited by, oh, really? All right, then.
Okay.
And then I go back to the team. I'll say, guess what? Someone said. And they're like, right, let's do this. We are just we're that kind of makeup of people, is that we believe in the impossible. And also, if someone else has done something, if someone else has managed to grow a business rapidly, why can't we? Yeah. It's just about a plan. It's just about executing really, really well, delivering to the plan. You know, I've got a great partner. My husband is absolutely brilliant. He's a transformation change program director, and what he brings is the yin and yang. So I'm very visionary. I've got ideas every day, innovation. I'm team, I'm people, I'm kind of driving the culture. What he brings, and he's a board member, is that he brings this being pragmatic. He's very execution focused. He's very planned. He's very delivery. He's also very tech background as well. He understands the whole tech side of it. So we have a really good balance there. And he's on the board, but he works somewhere else. And in the evening, when we both finish work, guess what? We go for a walk and we talk about the business, right? And so I've got him for free in the evening, which is really great. Otherwise, it'd be really expensive to hire. And then I've got another amazing board member. She came from banking, and her background is finance. So she is all over the numbers like anything, you know. So and then I've got a leadership team who run, you know, each department: marketing, sales, product, customer experience, etc., operations. They are the best. They are all better than me. That's all I could say. I'm always a believer that always hire people who are better than you. What's the point of hiring someone that's not better than you? Because actually you're just going to end up having an average team. To build a world-class team, you need people better than you in what their trade is, and that's what I've done. I've just got the best of the best in there, and I've got such an amazing crew that we're able to do this.
And final question, Nena, is advice. You know, you must have had some great advice, especially when you talk about Richard as your chairperson. I guess, what's the best piece of advice? What's the best advice you've either been given, or what's the best piece of advice you would give?
So I would say accept that failure is going to be part of the journey. Yeah. And actually, it's a brilliant thing. Yeah, embrace it. You'll learn. The other thing is be vulnerable. Allow it. Yeah. Surround yourself with people who are going to be there for you. Yeah. Hire people that are better than you. You know what? In the early days, it's not easy to do that. But what I mean by that is bring in people that have a skill that you don't have. Don't, you know, always try to do that. And a lot of people get scared of bringing in people with skills you don't have because they think, oh my God, they're better than me at that. But actually you don't realise that you're building a world-class team to do that. Be all over your cash. Cash is king because we're all over it. And I think kind of those would probably, and never stop learning. I think the last thing I would say is invest in yourself as well. Yeah? Yeah, because when I started the business, I didn't do that. And the pandemic has taught me that if you don't invest in yourself, you're burning out the engine like a car, right? And you've got to be on your top game. You're the one that your energy flows through the organisation. And if your energy is off, everyone else will feel it. So it sounds like, oh, what? I'm going to spend half an hour doing yoga. I've got so much on my plate. But actually, that is part of your job, is to look after yourself too. And I do yoga now every morning before I start my day. Even if I'm feeling bad, I just turn up on the mat, even if I'm just going to sit on the mat and breathe. something so that it gets me ready and relaxed to say, you know what, I've just got the engine sorted for the day, off we go. That's probably one of the biggest advices I'd give to an entrepreneur. Last one, sorry, one more.
No, keep them coming. I love it.
The last one is whatever plans you have that you think you need to execute to deliver, you need to 10 times that. Because you're never, if you think that's all you're going to need to do, it's never that way.
Again.
And I've learned that way, the hard way. Is like, what do you mean? Like, I've just set up a website. Why are they not all coming? And why haven't we like made 1 million bookings like overnight? It never happens that way. So you've got to 10 times your effort and say, right, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this. So many things to make that one thing happen, and plan it and just deliver it.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I think it's something that came across actually in another interview, is your energy is critical for your business. You know, your ability to function and be at the top of your game is so important. So actually, when you invest in yourself, you are investing in your business. And I think it's so easy to forget that, because people focus on making sure the plates are spinning and they're being everywhere and doing everything. And that for me is just brilliant advice, especially because it helps create that the mental health, which is so important for all people in business.
It is.
Nena, it's been brilliant to talk to you. You are clearly very much enjoying building something here, which is really standing out in your industry, building a great team. And I think going back to the beginning, we couldn't be more proud to have you in the Growth 100. Thank you for sharing your founder story. I'm very excited to see where this business goes in the months and years ahead. So very best of luck, and thanks a million.
Thank you so much.